Now, is he fancy store Harrison Barnes? Yes, he can actually do all. He can like grab something.
Fancy store. You couldn't even think of a fancy store.
I was like, what's a good fancy store? It's like, yeah, like not. It's the opposite of like dollar stores.
Welcome to episode 30 of the David Binkowski podcast. Today, my guest, NBA expert, CTO for SportGrid.com, Arturo Galletti. Arturo, welcome to the podcast.
It's nice to be here. We're going to talk about the finals.
We're in the finals, and we're 3 games in with Game 4 coming tonight. The Celtics are up 2-1. There are 1,000,001 storylines that we're going to talk through, but let's get right to the core of how these teams got here and what we see moving forward, because we're kind of at the midway point. This could be the midway point closer to the end. And it's kind of feeling like the latter, but there's some factors that could change. There's some factors that could definitely change. Obviously, Steph's ankles are a big factor, but there are other things that could be done as well. So, Arturo, I'll let you take the Warriors and their path to getting here, because I know that you're a Celtics fan, so we'll...
The one thing I was gonna lay out was somebody was saying like, oh, this is a weird finals, and I was like, not really. It's the dynastic team that's basically made the finals when their 3 key guys have been healthy. Like they missed the finals because like Clay was out, like they kind of wasted a season last year with like the wrong personnel, but they really could have like made the playoffs, probably maybe made the finals last year out of the West, but they just didn't get there, just missed it. And a team that is a team that's won the most titles historically, and they've been to, like, the thing with the Celtics team is this team, these guys have been to 4 conference finals in the last 6 years, right? People don't really think about it that way, but really, like 6 years ago, like Jason Tatum was dunking on like LeBron James in Cleveland in Game 7 of the conference finals. Now they didn't hold on, but like that team was so really young, and they've evolved, but like really it's a more normal final historically than you would think. It's like a very young team that's been there, that's kind of like making the next step, but the dynastic team that's always been there. The thing with the Warriors is that like the Warriors are who they are. It's hilarious. I'm like I talk a lot with the Warriors super fans and the guys that records the podcast. And like last season was a really weird season in that we said, look, if they made the right personnel moves, they could have competed. They basically threw away a finals appearance last year, really. Yep. And the thing I always told the Warriors guys, like, hey, go out and get Otto Porter. They went out and got Otto Porter. Go out and get guys who can kind of complement around the ball. And they did that. Get guys who can shoot, like do things. And that's really kind of what they did. And also Clay's back. I mean, the biggest thing for the Warriors is they basically wasted their picks, right? They had these great picks and they picked Wiseman, and everybody and their mother thought they were going to pick Lonzo Ball, but whatever, it is what it is. Yep. Right. So, they got here by being, there's a couple things that kind of broke their way. The Suns having a COVID outbreak at the wrong time, combined with like the Dallas basically going completely at like Chris Paul physically. There's a great 538 article we want to read up on it. But basically what Dallas was doing was they was going like straight at Chris Paul on pick and rolls. And by the time the series ended, in between that and the COVID, they were like, Phoenix would beat the shit. And by the time and they were like these models, Dallas wasn't going to beat like the Warriors are like a way better team than Dallas. The only team that the Warriors faced that could have beat them before they got there was Memphis, but once John Morant got hurt, it wasn't going to happen, right?
Yep.
Like Memphis has one of these weird teams where the Memphis team is really, really, really good. The problem is like when you take Ja out, you have to play Dillon Brooks, and Dillon Brooks is just not ready for the ball. Right.
Yep.
And they still fought. They still got that 6 games, but like they just weren't going to get there. Now, getting into the series, the trick with this Warriors team is this Warrior team is a one-team guy, right? One-guy team. And what I mean by that is like somebody had this number up where like I believe the Warriors offensive rating when Steph is on the court is like 116 in the series, which would be the best of any team this season. And their offensive rating when Steph is off the court is something like 89. I think it's like 89. And that would be like the worst for finals team ever, right? So really, the like the Warriors really need Steph, and they haven't been able to generate anything outside of Steph, and really kind of dependent on that. But I'll let you take the Celtics, so that way we can actually kind of get to the meat of discussing like the key factors in the series.
Absolutely. So the Celtics, obviously, the Nets went through what they went through all year long with the Kyrie drama and the saga. They were always considered this great high-powered offense and shit on defense. So while I did obviously, you look at the preseason betting lines and who's favored, and sure, you throw a few dollars at it, but when it comes down to it, if you can't get stops and you're playing a team that can, and they can score with you, then you're probably gonna lose that series. And it's one of the reasons why it was a sweep. I think the Bucks series in particular, and the Heat, but the Bucks series, obviously no Middleton, but the Bucks series was a great prep for the Celtics. They are literally running through the top seeds, the best teams, even if maybe the seeding was a little, not 1, 2, 3, 4, but they played the top talent. They stopped Durant and Kyrie. They stopped Giannis. And even if Giannis had 50, great, they lost.
They survived Giannis. Really.
I agree. Well,
yeah,
but it was a 7-game series, and again, a young team like you mentioned in Boston, who has that experience, but maybe hasn't all put it together, and is learning how they need to play to win. And I think the Heat were a testament to the same thing. Now, again, the Heat series could have possibly gone the other way, right? These are very close series, so there's been a little bit of luck involved. But overall, I think from a Celtics standpoint, if I'm a Celtics fan and coach, that's progress. You made absolute progress. You beat the best teams to get here, and it really prepared you. I mean, granted, the Warriors are a good defensive team. Don't get me wrong, but the East is a juggernaut when it comes to the talent, the defense. Like that's just not the way it is in the West.
I'll say this as a Celtics fan, and I said this during like when it was happening live. It's like, I like Brad Stevens, but if Brad Stevens is coaching the team, their team is not playing in the finals.
I 1,000% agree. Yep.
And it's Milwaukee, and Giannis is basically this like just wrecking the Warriors interior, like really. But the reason is, and again, Brad is and I've said this before, but Brad is like Kerr. He's a Spurs guy. Spurs guys are system coaches, and it is very hard. Like a friend of mine like summarized this like on here, said like, Spurs coaches basically go like it's like rock, paper, scissors, and they're always going like rock. Can't beat rock, great rock. Rock is awesome, right? And they always want to go back to their baseline, right? It's really hard for them to move along in the short term. And so you get into a series against like Spo, and Spo, if you really looked at the Miami series, like Boston was the better team the entire series, except for a few quarters when Spo would pull a mind trick, right? And Miami's a really good team about this in the sense of like Spo would pull the mind trick, and Miami's built in such a way with these veterans that they'll go out and like execute it perfectly. And then like, it would take the Celtics a whole quarter to freaking adjust. And like by the time they would adjust, they would have like gone like plus 30 or plus 30. Like Miami would have gone plus 30, plus 35, and they couldn't quite catch up in time.
Well, and the coaching change. I mean, so Brad moving.
By the way, you mentioned the Nets, but where was Udoka coaching last year? Nets, right? So the Nets, part of the Nets thing was like they missed some of the guys they lost on the staff. Udoka, where he is also his first coach like Kerr, and he was a bench assistant for Pop, but Udoka has shown the ability to adjust on the fly in games, right? He doesn't. Like it takes him a while because again, this is really kind of his first playoff by fire, but he has shown the ability to kind of catch up. And one thing that's been really interesting about the Celtics team is even when like Miami would run off these quarters, they would always freaking fight back, right? Like they might not get over. And it happened in the Milwaukee. They'd be down like 20. Happened last night. Like happened in game 1. Like the Warriors will do this great run, but like the Celtics don't give up in the fourth quarter, right? The Celtics will like go like, okay, and then respond and come back and like, because they will make an adjustment, they will fight back, and really talent-wise, they are better than a lot of these teams' talent. I mean, I think the other little tricky bit with the Celtics is the Celtics have not been really at full strength, really probably until game 3 of the finals. Like that last game in the fourth quarter was the Celtics at full strength, right?
Right.
And the reason for that is, so the most important player on the Celtics defense is Rob Williams. And it's Rob Williams when he can jump.
Yep.
Because if you looked at that fourth quarter, what the Celtics did was that they stopped playing drop, but Rob at the beginning of the fourth quarter basically went on Steph, right? So he was basically chasing Steph around and doing help. And when he can go, like basically, so he's chasing Steph around, he's basically like young Darvin, but he's like Cloring can hop, right? So he was just deflecting and changing all the shots. And when he's there and he can do that in the paint, then everybody else on that Celtics team can basically like step off helping at the rim, right? Because they know the other team can't rim run. And if the other team can't rim run, they can start pressing all the Warriors the corners, and they start doing the thing where like it's one guy, like you can do one guy on Steph and trust that even if he gets by you, he's going to run it to like Rob in the paint, right? And so when he's there, if Rob Williams is playing more than 20, if he's playing 26, 27 minutes, then life is very good for the Celtics. Yep. Now, obviously, I think the trick with this is like the Warriors have so much shooting that like they're going to have a positive variance game where like they can go over, or like what happened in game 2, which was like, you know, they got a friendly, like we've talked about the rest of it, but that particular crew that was there, I think the Celtics scored. I think they had one clean field goal in the paint in that game, in game 2. And it's just basically what happens is, you know, if the refs decide they're not going to call any, like they're not going to call hand checks, and they're not going to call like body checks on like drives to the paint, then, and you're playing the Warriors and you're playing Draymond, you're not going to get any clean shots. Like same thing would happen if you're playing the Bucks, right? Like if you're playing the Bucks or Miami or the Warriors and you're not getting any foul calls when you're trying to drive the ball like rim run, then you can't get any pressure at the rim, which means they can press you on the outside and you're not going to make any shots because all the looks are going to be bad, right? Yeah. And this is like why people have to evolve. And I think I've actually gotten to the point where like I've gotten people to evolve to understand that the refs affect the game, but I haven't gotten them to evolve past the whole thing. Like, oh, but they shot more free throws, dude. That's not it. Like you're missing the point. Like if
who
they're
called
like
for fouls, what were the type of fouls that were called?
But here's the thing: there's a limited inventory of fouls, and coaches will adjust based on the fouls that are called, right? So if you get a player in foul trouble, the coach will think, I don't think they should, but they take them out, right? So they do limit that behavior. But if you allow all this contact, then the team is just going to keep pressing. Like the elite defensive teams will keep pressing until you actually call the goddamn foul, right?
Yeah.
Draymond will keep going. This like he will. I mean, if you let Draymond kick somebody in the face, Draymond will kick somebody in the face. If you let him like put a nut shot on somebody, he'll put a nut shot on somebody. And I mean, like, you know, guys like PJ Tucker will do the same thing, and guys like, you know, Jimmy will do it. Grant Williams on the Celtics will do it. Like this, God respect. Like, and that's part of the game. I mean, like, I get frustrated because I think they should be calling the games the same. But like you have to recognize that how they are calling the game, particularly on the, I tell people, watch the 50-50 plays, right? And you know what I mean. You know, like there's a play where like a guy's going to the hoop, right? He's rim running and there's contact, right? And it's one of those plays where it can either go as an offensive foul or go as a defensive foul, right? Or it's a type play where he's driving where there might not be any contact. And you watch how the 50-50 plays are called, right? You know what a foul looks like. Look for those and see which way it goes. And that determines how defenses play, which is like kind of like where the game looked one way in game 1, then one way another way in game 2, and another way in game 3, right? The Celtics were getting contact on drives to the hoop in game 3, so like they were scoring more at the rim. It wasn't that they were running they weren't running different offense. They just like the offense that they were running wasn't getting basically share shots across the head every time they went into the. And again, it's just the way it's called. Like I haven't even looked. I think the crew, obviously, it's not Foster Brothers. It's not Zarba. I think it's fairly neutral crew. I think
Foster was 3. Foster was game 3, so that puts him. That sets him up then for potentially game 7.
Yeah, he'd be game 7. I think what's going to happen tonight is you're going to get a neutral call, and then you're going to get bias called to whichever team is down. Like if it's 2-2. Then you'll probably get a neutral call in 5-2. If it's 3-1, then you're probably getting a favorable Warriors.
I think that the coaching change for the Celtics was huge. I think that Brad's moves were huge. He made fantastic moves. As a first-time GM,
Brad, as a defensive guy and as a personnel guy, really got it, because the moves that he made, he basically got the worst players that were on the team. He got what's his face? Freedom. Yes, Freedom. Got his freedom gone. And he got
Arturo, if it wasn't for his political stances, he'd still be in the league.
Yeah, he got Freedom gone, and he got Dennis Schroeder gone. And I mean, Schroeder was okay. He is what he is, but like, he basically got Derek White, Derek White has been freaking fantastic in defense. Like, he's been his offense has been a come and go, but his defense on Steph, his defense on Butler and Lowry the previous series, his defense on Drew the previous series, like even his defense, even on Kyrie this week, like on defense, and the things he brings, and how when he is playing well and driving, he is such an important part for the Celtics team, and he's on their court, and they really haven't integrated him through the training camp, but he's been he's been amazing on defense with this team. Perfect fit. And then the other one is they went out and got Theis, which, I mean, Theis has had his problems in certain series. Like, you couldn't play him in the Miami series. You can't play him in this series. The people are still kind of stuck. Like, personnel wise, Theis, you cannot play Theis in a series where there's somebody like Jimmy Butler who can drive to the post and get foul calls, right? So Jimmy Butler is a great when they're playing Miami went to play him at the 4 because they knew when they could play him at the 4, they could get him on Theis doesn't get any foul calls. So you could put him next to Theis. It's all basically almost an automatic foul. Now, the Warriors really don't have a post player like that, so you can't play Theis regularly. But again, here's the thing. Like, the Celtics went to the conference finals with Theis as their starting center, right? 2 years ago. Getting him for Enos fucking Freedom, and but getting him for Freedom was just like a godsend. Like, they turned, they basically they have a solid 8,
it wasn't like an earth-shattering
rotation, right? So
it wasn't this crazy earth-shattering move, but when Rob Will went down, it sure as shit mattered then. And like you said, situationally, he's a great backup. He's a very good backup center. So
if Rob Williams was playing 30 minutes a game, the Celtics would have ran through in the finals. Because when he's actually been on the court, if you look at his plus minus, the plus minus numbers for when Rob Williams has been on the court with Al Horford have been insane. Because defensively, you've seen it when they have both of them and Rob is cooking, right? It's just defensively they have superpowers when that happens. Now, the tricky bit is he was on the court in the Bucks series, but in the Bucks series he didn't have his hop, so Giannis could get past him, right? And Rob to his credit, was trying, but Giannis is freaking Giannis, right? So if you're not 100% physically, Giannis is going to go through you, right? And that's really what happened in that series. And again, Rob is the most important player because he just makes the defense go together. I think other than that, the Celtics, all the models had the Celtics favored, and I understood why the models had the Celtics favored, and my model also had the Celtics favored. I thought it was closer than I was actually on the end where I was closer to having it more even, because I take into account things like experience, things like the coaches. Even though I don't rate Kerr very well. Kerr. And this isn't Kerr is a bad coach. This is Kerr is a bad playoff coach, right? Mm-hmm. What that means is he is a great systems coach, but he isn't playing Steph more than 40 minutes, for example. He will be slow to make adjustments on that, right? So, he'll make...
That's a fantastic transition into one of the bigger issues. It's one of the louder issues, but from an impact standpoint, it is an absolute non-factor issue, which is Draymond Green. And why Kerr through 3 games, where 2 of them have been absolute dog shit. And the one game he played well, he passed the ball. He didn't shoot. He's got 15 points in 15 fouls through 3 games. You can't play him. He is unplayable at this point.
But if you take him off the court, what does your defense look like against the Celtics? Then you're really, really small.
I think it forces you to rely on more Looney minutes. So put Kuminga in there for a little bit just to try to buy time.
To be fair, I understand why Kerr is playing Dre. The problem, okay, here's the thing. So there's going to be game 2 when he's allowed to foul the shit out of everybody. Then he's PJ Tucker. You want to have him in there then. The problem isn't really that I mean, his defense, his offense is not what it was, but also the Celtics defense is extremely good. So Draymond's getting, so there is no point where Draymond's looking at a non-elite defender. Like really, even when they're talking about, oh, challenge Paul Pritchard, Pritchard. Pritchard's actually a good defender. He's not smart and he's not white, but like Pritchard is not a bad defender, right? So like Grant Williams he's getting into elite territory on defense, right? So like you're bringing these elite defenders, like, so who is your best defensive matchup for Draymond? There's nobody you can kind of like take advantage of. Like even like what you're gonna bring Theis in, like any one of these guys can take Draymond in the post or chase him around. So functionally, it isn't as much Draymond being bad on offense. It's just the Celtics defense is actually really, really good, a really bad matchup.
It's also pretty easy though when you're basically playing 5-on-4, right? Because like he touches the ball and it's like, no, please shoot. Like we need you to shoot more.
Yeah. So if you, I mean, like I think one of the things that helped, like big help for the Warriors was like getting Gary Payton back.
Yeah,
because Gary Payton too gives them another ball handler. Because I mean, Draymond is one of their ball handlers. Like if you think about, then what you need Clay to handle. Like Clay handling balls a little bit like some like. Okay, so to compare, let's compare Clay to Jalen. They're actually more similar than you think. And so they both have like dribbling issues. Whereas I think like I don't necessarily want Clay being the guy who's like. I don't want Clay being the guy who's driving at the teeth of this defense. I want Clay being the guy shooting off the ball. Yes, that's what I want. I mean, he's not playing that well, but he like you're gonna get the Clay game. Like, low key problem for the Warriors is they lost the Clay game. Like at least the first Clay game they got, which was Game 3, they lost that, right? And like I think. The other problem for the Warriors has been that they kind of expect teams to go away after they give them the
big third. Yeah,
the big third. But the Celtics team has not gone away in this single game. Every time like the other team like makes a run, Celtics are like, okay. And they make a final adjustment in the fourth quarter. Like in this particular game, they went like in the fourth quarter, I said they basically went press. They went press and they were like, okay, Rob can take care of it. And Rob was behind them to take care of it, and it took Curry out of the game. And once you take Curry out of the game on offense, then like the Warriors really have nothing, like in terms of what they can throw at this team. That's kind of the problem with the series for them. I think the adjustment that I called, that I thought that this is what the Celtics need to do, is they need to go at Steph on defense, which they did in Game 3, which is like, look. Steph needs to work on every possession on both ends, right? So you need to chase him around with either White or Smart or Rob or PP the entire, like there, you need to have an aggressive defender in his face the entire game on offense. And you need to basically go at him on defense, right? It's like when he's on defense, you need to go at him because what you want is simply the same thing that Mavs did to Chris Paul, like make the load so hard that he basically wears down. So by the time the fourth quarter goes around, which is what happened in this game, he just can't go. And I think this game's going to be really interesting because he did twist his foot and knee, and he was already like tired after Game 3. And the Celtics, one of the nice parts about having the depth that they do, particularly at guard, is, as I said, they can chase him around, and I think they can put enough pressure on him where like it's going to get progressively harder for him to recover and come out and play well. And I mean, I think that's part of it. I mean, they did that to Lowry in the series. They did that to Jimmy Butler a little bit. Although Butler, again, to his credit, Butler is such a good post player that when he decides he's going to start getting points in a game, like, look, I'm just going to go to the post, it's really hard to stop him from scoring, right? Same thing with Giannis. Like both Giannis and Jimmy have that thing where like if they decide they're going to score the post, there's not much you can fucking do about it, right? Like you're either going to put him on the line or you're gonna like let him score. That's kind of the problem.
Let me ask you a question. If you mentioned the Warriors and their draft history and how it's not been good. One pick after them, the Orlando Magic selected Franz Wagner. Do you think he could help them right now? Good defensive player, can get to the rim, shoot the three.
Yeah,
I think right. What about Herb Jones? Right, Herb Jones went after. Yes, Herb Jones went after him.
And you're talking about the 21 draft, not even the 22, the 20 draft.
Right.
Because that's sad as hell.
Well, that one was even, but I'm just, they've for all the credit they get, and again, I think Steph Curry is one of the greatest players I've ever seen play the game. He is amazing. I may not be a Warriors fan or what have you, but he's incredible. But
Sengun could probably help him too.
Who's the number 2? Who is the true number 2 on that team? Is it Wiggins? It's not Clay.
I mean, Wiggins works in very specific situations, and Wiggins works as long as you have space. Like if you have godlike spacing around them, then Wiggins worked. Last year, when they were playing, anytime they played Wiseman or they played, God, what's his name? He's not with the team anymore. I forget his name. But like the guy, they had a bunch of guys that really kind of reduced space around him and just did,
stories.
I was like, what's a good fancy store? It's like, yeah, like not it's the opposite of like dollar store. It's like no. The word of Spanish would be come mierda. Yes. Frou premium store brand.
Saks Fifth Avenue
version of Harrison Bar. But I mean, like Wiggins is
Gucci Harrison Bar.
But the second best player on the Warriors would be like what? The 6th best player on the Celtics? Maybe more. Like would you rather have, if you're the Warriors, would you rather have Wiggins or Grant Williams?
Grant Williams. I didn't even think about it. I don't even think about, if you start looking at, if you put the roster side by side, I mean, it's pretty apparent as to why things are the way they are. They're deep. The Celtics are deep. They defend. They can switch everything. Like the Warriors can't do that. I honestly feel like the best strategy for the Warriors tonight is for Draymond to get his double technical or his 2 technicals to get thrown out of the game. Team gets fired strategically, not at the very beginning of the game.
Oh wait. You bring that up. Like there's a suggestion floating around that I'm in favor of, which is like the referee should be able to assign as many technical ones, like make it technical 1s and technical 2s, and technical 1s they can assign as many as they want. And the player doesn't need to be thrown out. You can have them like basically yellow card, red card, but you can give as many yellow cards as you like. Because honestly, with Draymond makes a mockery of the system. Draymond should get like 5 technicals a game. Just give him the 5 technicals, give him the single free throw, and that'll curve his behavior. Because the way it's set up now, since he knows they're not going to throw him out, then he can basically, once he gets that first one, then he can just like do like he's doing some.
I saw the free throw. The free throw with
Tatum. The
hook zone
with But I mean, he gets tossed like for some of this, like, and he knows what he's doing, and I understand what he's doing, but they need to change the rules so it doesn't take advantage. I mean, the other part is like the other one, like Warrior fans were complaining about that whole like the Steph kind of falling into Al play. They also need to add some gray area on that, because the thing players are doing on that jump is like, so Al jumps the challenge, Steph jumps for a 3, sees Alex coming and twists his body in the air, right?
Yep.
So it's not a natural motion for landing. And honestly, they need to put some gray area there, because you really don't want players doing that. You don't want shooters doing that, because yes, Steph did on purpose move his body around to draw the foul, but he could have fucked up his knee doing it. Right. So I don't want to reward. This particular play is dangerous, and I don't want it to happen. So
I did think the closeout was a little aggressive, and obviously Steph flailed forward, so none of it worked. Right?
I mean, but he landed straight down. Like Al didn't do the little hop thing to get underneath or throw out the leg, which people have done. Like, so Al really wasn't trying to hit him there, right? But the point being, like, getting back to I think their best strategy for the Warriors is, I mean, it's kind of tricky because the Celtics defense can adjust to that, but they really need to figure out a way to get Poole and Clay going, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of hope they can get, like, they really do need to kind of put the press down on the fouls early, so they can get into, like, the deeper the Celtics have to get into their big man rotation, the better it is for the Warriors, right?
Right. Yep. Exactly.
Because they haven't.
I know that they're talking. I know that there's. I saw that I was looking at the MVP conversation through 3 games, which is kind of stupid, but whatever. And
it's probably Jalen. If it's the Celtics,
they had Jalen was listed as number 1. Inexplicably, Klay Thompson was on the list and maybe laugh hysterically. I would put Rob Will on there. I know he hasn't played huge minutes, but his impact If he doesn't play, they're a different team.
If that's a tricky bit. Like, so what the Warriors have to take advantage of is that Rob Williams is only really available about 25, 26 minutes a game. If Rob was available 35 minutes a game, this would be academic. But since it's not, you can actually get into a situation where like the Celtics have to like dip into kind of like bad alignments or like less favorable alignments on defense. Like, I mean, the less favorable alignments are like rolling out like Derek White and PP and Grant Williams and like, which is like they've rolled out in these series. It shouldn't, and it's kind of worked. Like they'll do that with like Jalen and Theis, and it still kind of works because like there's enough ball motion around, but it's not ideal in terms of, like when they do that, you really do have to attack the rim. Of that it's like Looney, like hey Looney, you need to use Looney. One thing that the Warriors have done really successfully when some of the personnel has like rotated is slam the offense. Now the trick with that is basically the Celtics have a choice. They can either help on Steph, right, when he's out there, or crash the boards, right? Because of the way they were countering that was crashing the boards on the guard. So when they have to press up on defense, then they can't get the rebounds unless Rob, like again, Rob kind of breaks this. If Rob is there and Rob is like playing like it was in the fourth quarter, then the Warriors are fucked because they're not going to get those rebounds, right? So this is why I said like if Rob was healthy, this would kind of be academic, but he's not. So you have to kind of press on, like kind of like how the Warriors have to press. So the Celtics have to press on Steph and make him work hard, so he gets tired and he's on the court less. The Warriors have to press hard on the fact that like Rob can't play that much, right?
Yep.
And exactly. These are the buttons that you want to press, right? So you want to get it or like get it moving around, like challenge. Like the thing is, like they were challenging. They're trying to get Rob in space at one point in the series. So they're early in the series. They're trying to get Rob in space and get a guard like going at him in space, and that did not work out at all. Like so it worked out a little. It worked out for like a quarter, and then Rob kind of figured it out. And like they were having Steph go at Rob, and it's like I think it happened in Game 3. They had Clay was going at him, and just Rob just like knocked that ball into the one block where he knocked it into like the crowd. He's like, no. That's the tricky bit. Again, having an elite rim protector like that, and again, having an elite rim protector next to like Al Horford and Grant Williams, when they have an elite rim protector around them, can basically turn into like, incredible help defenders. It's just really a change. But again, like because he can't play that much, that's what the Warriors kind of need to challenge. I do think that like the Warriors getting this to 7 relies on them getting a lot more out of Clay, right? They need to get more out of Clay, get more out of Poole. Because I mean, again, I think the one game they won, I'm going to sound like a homer here, but the one game they won, they clearly won because the Celtics defense was hampered, right? And then the defense was hampered, and also the offense was hampered because the Warriors are basically being able to like the stats that you got in that particular game are not common, right? Because I think and again, it's homer, like it happens, homer court bias, that happens. And I expect there'll be another game like the whistles will be this way. This is the way it is. And I can get on my podium and say like I would like the NBA to call the games the same way from game 1 of the season to last game of the finals. And I like nothing annoys me more than like the broadcast calling about, oh, it's a good playoff foul. What the hell is it? Why do you have to make a distinction between a regular foul and a playoff foul?
Yep.
Why?
As a coach, as a fan, obviously it's frustrating because you're like, what the fuck? That was not a foul last game, or that wasn't a foul last game. But as a coach, it's the same thing. And like you said, Brad was not really good at working the refs, and I feel like Ime is. I feel like he's better. He does a better job of that. He understands it. He challenges players instead of complaining about it necessarily. He'll challenge the players more. But as a coach, it's nothing. One of my biggest complaints in trying to teach the game to younger players is you're teaching them that reaching in is okay. You're teaching them that you can slide and still get a charge call, right? When there's inconsistency amongst things like that, I think it's bad basketball. I think that's where it needs to get cleaned up.
One of the things I would teach if I was coaching, one of the things I would teach my players is, look, much like in school, you have to learn the teacher.
Yep.
You have to learn the teacher, particularly when you're writing essays. You have to understand what this teacher expects and what this teacher is looking for. What are his standards in terms of if you want to get a good grade? Like the more you understand that, the easier your job is going to be because you have to work less hard. Same thing happens with like basketball games and referees. You have to figure out, there is a feeling out process in every game where you're filling out what you can and cannot do. And the best players in the world, if you look at them, Kawhi is really good. If you want to watch somebody who really does this well, watch Kawhi play. Or did I say that right? Yeah, Kawhi. If you watch him play, like he will spend the first quarter figuring out how much contact he can get away with his offhand. Because the one thing that Kawhi does, if you watch him, is when he's driving to the hoop, he is freakishly strong. He can literally pick up somebody with his offhand and move him like a foot away, right? You see him, wrap the guy on the hip, and just literally pick him up and move him away. And if the refs are letting him get away with contact on the hand when he's driving, you see him, he gets a small smile. He's just going to destroy people that particular game. Now, their games are like, if he puts his hand and he starts moving, he immediately gets popped for an offensive foul. But there are games where he doesn't do that. And again, it's a dumb way. I mean, it's a dumb to have to teach that, but it's the way, like, look.
It's the reality.
If you're a high level player, you need to understand that like the way you can defend is going to change on a game to game basis based on how the crews are calling the game. And you need to understand that so you can adjust your defense accordingly. Now, if you go to international play, it's not that bad, but like in the States, it's BS, right? So you watch these games. And I get frustrated about it. I would like the league to clean it up. But if you're teaching it, like somebody like Spo, when he teaches it, or somebody like Nurse, when he teaches it, or somebody like anybody that, or Phil Jackson, like they would teach, like, look, you understand how the game is being called and you adjust accordingly, right? Understand the situation and adjust accordingly. Like, which is Arturo, like,
you mentioned Phil Jackson. Mm-hmm. And since, well, first of all, before we go on, I do want to talk about the Lakers hiring Darvin Ham, but what do you see happening tonight? What do you think the rest of the series looks like?
I think this series, I stick with Celtics in 6. I think that they probably take one of these two games. And what I mean by that is like, so if the Warriors win tonight, I think the Celtics win game 5. I think if the Celtics win tonight, I think the Warriors win. Because again, I think the Celtics, they kind of like, we've seen this, they kind of step up to the moment. They haven't really won. They haven't really held court at home, but they've been like the best road team in the entire playoffs. The Warriors, I mean, it could end at 5. The Warriors can also, I mean, again, hot shooting. They've got all this legendary shooting. So if you get like a Clay game, then this could definitely go 7. I do think that on the balance, the Celtics are the better team, particularly the more Robert Williams. Like if Rob Williams plays, then really, so the more he plays, the easier the road is for the Celtics.
Yep, I think it's Celtics in 6. I actually joked around and said runs to the sports book to take Celtics in 5 after this last game. If Steph is hurt, then it's over. It's over. Clay has not shown he can consistently be that guy. He said he had the Clay game, and unfortunately, maybe the only one we see from him. And they don't have someone else who can fill Steph's shoes. So I hope he's not seriously hurt. I hope he plays well. But I still think, like you said, Celtics.
I think the Celtics
too good, too deep and too good.
I think the Celtics have like Smart and Grant Williams and DP and White, and they're all going to run up on Steph, and they're going to make him work so hard tonight. So they're going to make him they're going to physically wear him out, I think, in this game. I think, like, as I was telling somebody, it's like, as a Celtics fan, this is house money, right? In the sense of, like, I thought the season was over in December. They responded. I thought the season was over in April when Rob got hurt. And, he got back. And so, like, it does kind of hurt in the sense of, like, you feel very much like this team can win the title. Like, if you're a Celtics fan, you're looking at this team and going, like, they can win.
Yep.
They've answered every challenge.
So I think that we're both in agreement. Celtics in 6. Quickly, we have the Lakers hiring Darvin Ham. Your thoughts on that?
Well, the important bit is that he kept Phil Handy, who is the assistant coach, who's actually really good. If you look at him, he's like on every title. He's so many titles on the last 10 years. Really good players like him. So that the trick with that is he's a big Russell Westbrook fan. Which is going to be tricky.
I would say he is a vocal Russell. I don't know that he's truly a fan. I think what he's doing is saying either, because realistically, Russ is now on an expiring, right? So they could just bench him. They could just send him home and say, you're on the team.
They can do there's a stretch where they can do a lot of things. I think the Lakers are in a weird position where, like, that roster is, like, it wasn't good. Like, it wasn't good last year. It's worse this year unless they do something. Yeah. Let's not even get too much into that.
Actually, I'm enjoying both the Knicks and the Lakers sucking, but whatever. As a Pistons fan, it's fantastic. So the last thing I want to talk about is the Utah Jazz. Quinn Snyder steps down as the coach. Danny Ainge comes in from last year. And, again, if you're Quinn Snyder, this team has been assembled. They got as close as I think they're going to get, and now they're looking at possibly dismantling it. It's a new owner. There's a new team president who are going to shake things up, and he just had hip replacement surgery. So, taking some time off wouldn't be a bad thing in this situation.
Snyder's probably the worst playoff coach of all the good coaches. He's really, really bad as a playoff coach.
Yeah.
So I do think that definitely this team has more upside with that, but knowing Danny's going to want to move guys and get value. If I'm reading the leads on Danny, he probably wants to trade Donovan first. I think he probably wants to move Donovan first. And I've bitched about this forever. Quinn Snyder did not know how to use Rudy Gobert.
Right.
If you want to know how to use Rudy Gobert, go find his Olympic highlights. And the French coaches know how to use Rudy Gobert. Right. There's just some basic simple things that you can do with Rudy Gobert that make him extremely effective. He's actually really good at one step off the dribble, and he's actually really good at the single turnaround where he doesn't bring the ball down. Right. These two things he's very good at. Anytime you ask him to back down and dribble with his back, bad. But so you can actually really use them. If I'm reading Danny's, move Donovan Mitchell for the max package you can get. Maybe move, I don't know if the other guy, what's his name? Guy who's played for Memphis. God, I forget his name. Their other point guard. Maybe move
Conley.
him to Conley. I don't know what Conley's contract is like. Maybe you want to move him too. But the right play is to move for assets and then keep Gobert and rebuild around him and get him some additional, get a team that complements his all-world defense. Not stop having Gobert be the guy who has to come up to defend the guys on the wing.
Right.
If you
they would actually need wing defenders. That's part of the problem too.
Yeah, get me a wing defender, not a wing defender. But trade these guys. Get 3 or 4 wing defenders. Get some guys who can shoot threes, and find somebody in the draft who can do you can find somebody who can do 80% or 90% of what Donovan I call Donovan Mitchell without the D.
Yep.
Can do, because again, you can find a guard who can do the stuff on offense, get close to the offensive part. Teams find them that are not bad defensively. Look at Denver with what's his God, I forget his name. God, it's the Bones Highland. Look at a guy like Bones Highland, where the Nuggets found later in the draft. You can get a guy like Bones Highland 17, right? And I think Donovan Mitchell's better, but I think Bones is a serviceable replacement if you can go out and get assets. And I trust if there's somebody in the league
Ainge will do it.
If there's somebody in the league who I trust to go out and identify talent in the draft, it's Danny Ainge. I'm looking at the Celtics team and going I trust Danny Ainge with draft picks to go out and get me some awesome guys.
Yep, I agree.
Look at it's just simple.
Yep. So Arturo, that was NBA Finals.
40 minutes, very quick.
40 minutes. In 40 minutes. Thanks for coming on again, Arturo. We'll do it again probably once the playoffs wrap up. If you like this episode, please make sure you rate, like, and subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please make sure you give us a 5-star rating. Arturo, thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
Thanks.